Zelda's out. You know what I'm saying?
I do feel like there in the early 2000s, there was a period. I remember being in La Paz and going to like an internet cafe, and on the door, it had like what was they were willing to pay for a PlayStation 4 or something, or there was something about it, like they were selling it, and I remember it being like maybe 2 to 3 times what it cost in the United States, and thinking to myself, like, I should become a video game smuggler, man. I like you get a little plane, like, you know.
All right, we're at 10,000 feet. We're gonna drop to 5. Open the door, latch the chute, push it out. Chuck T coming in hot. Watch out, everybody.
Hey,
How you doing, man?
I'm doing well, man. You doing okay, Ovox?
I'm doing pretty good, man. I got a big smile on my face because had some unexpected, like a late Santa Claus coming in hot on Ark, man. That was pretty cool.
Raptor Claus.
Yeah, Raptor Claus came in hot and got some late Christmas gaming gifts, you might say, in a weird way. Yeah. So I'm pretty good, man. Yeah. How's your week going?
It's been pretty good. Yeah, just chilling mostly. Got a good bit of Ark in this week, and I'm kind of excited for the episode from here.
Yeah, let's just get her started for all the listeners. They want to get right into it too, I suspect. So hey, wait, Chuck, do you want to do the intro this time? I'm putting you in under the spotlight here. Do you remember? If it doesn't come out right, it's okay. Nobody's going to be mad at you, baby.
All right. We want to welcome gamers, non-gamers, PvEers, PvPers, and even NPCs to the New Wave Gaming Podcast, where I'm Chuck Tomahawk.
Yes, you are Chuck Tomahawk. And I'm Ovox.
And we are here to pump you up.
That's right. Yeah, welcome everyone. Yeah. We're happy to have you here. This is our what episode is this, man? We didn't make an outline this time. I think it's 19.
It is 19.
It's episode 19. Thanks everyone for being here. We should have a funny episode on. No, we do have a funny one on hand here. We're just going to talk a little bit about like the experience of buying games back in the day and the experience of buying games today. And just how different it is. And of course, we're going to drop a little, we're going to try and give a little bit of a comedic touch to the discussion.
That's right.
Chuck Tomahawk is usually the one that makes that happen.
Yeah, get some dramatic license.
I'm just here kind of loitering on this podcast.
That's not true.
Just trying to pull it together here with the switches and the dials. So we're going to talk about a little bit about the experience of buying video games. We're going to keep it real simple. We're going to try and keep this one a little bit shorter because, truth be told, and I know we always talk about Ark way too much, but we just got hooked up.
Dude,
and in fact, before we dive into this, because I know we're going to have to talk about it a little bit, I'll leave a timestamp in the episode description just in case you want to jump past all the rants and Chuck points and get to the meat and bones of the episode. But man, yeah, we got hooked up today.
We did. I feel like our viewers have to have almost experienced now. It's like anytime I've talked about us interacting with people outside of our tribe, it's usually like pretty aggressive and aggro as hell on any PvP situation. But it seems like we found a server where, people are kind of helping each other out, especially on the Aberration map of Ark there. And
yeah, we've been getting some help, man. First, I think both of us have to give a huge shout out to Omi Omai. I've been pronouncing it Omi Omi because I think that's the Mexico, living in Mexico my whole life side of me. I just kind of like read it as in Spanish,
Yeah, más o menos.
Omi Omi. Yeah. Huge shout out to Omi Omi.
Yeah,
or
sure.
Omi Omai for hooking up a dope base location on Ark Survival Evolved on the Aberration map. We're not going to mention servers or anything like that just to keep it on the down low, but huge shout out to him. And also, we've been able to flourish in that little spot, man.
We have it, and he hooked us up with the spot. We kind of, I think he was the first person we kind of ran into that was being sort of friendly, and we were kind of being friendly with the people that were starting out, where we were at too, and there's just a vibe there on Aberration that is kind of like, let's help each other out, because it is kind of harder to survive there in general. I mean, you got just a lot of challenges.
Ark's a unique map. Aberration rather is a unique map. You don't have flyers there.
Yeah, that's a good start.
Generally speaking, so that's a huge difference. The different sections, the blue zone, the red zone, et cetera. But so many thanks to Omio Mai from the Runamucks tribe for hooking up the spot we're in. We call it the root.
Yeah,
because it's literally like a root up in a way up in a tree, kind of way off the beaten path, and it's just like, we're gonna get raided one of these days, man. It's gonna happen. You know how Ark is. It's going to happen.
I learned that today. When I saw the elaborate bases that had also been raided. It just and also how much stuff you could possibly have. Just the scale and perspective of it, just nearly, it makes me think. I had a false sense of security where we were at up, in the route. Yeah, man.
When you see some of what these alpha tribes are capable of putting together.
Yeah. And for our listeners, like, there's a dino that you can get in this game that pretty much serves as a turret. Like instead of having bullets, it shoots almost like porcupine spikes. And I've been breeding a bunch of those, and just sort of, just thinking to myself, how can anyone survive this, kind of thing. And because most of the tactics I know for raiding bases, you couldn't soak them essentially, and, but after what I saw today,
and then you gotta make sure they got saddles and all that for the little armor boosts. Some of them didn't have saddles, so we lost a Volanosaur. That's what they're called, those Volanosaurs. And there was a potential raid in action, but I think we kind of like shut that down pretty successfully. Yeah. And then also. Got to give a huge, hold on, let me pull, he's got a unique gamer name here, and I didn't ask him his real name, of course, but got to give a huge shout out to IFTNR for, dude, like the biggest hookup I've ever experienced in my Ark gaming life, Like, dude, I got to be honest, I remember, playing Ark for the first time, and, you're in your, let's just call it your initial month of playing the game, and you're experiencing it. And listeners, if you haven't played Ark Survival Evolved and you're into survival games, definitely Chuck and I have talked about it a million times over here. You're probably sick of hearing about it, but check it out. Anyways, in all of my life on that game, every now and then someone's nice.
And every now and then,
and especially if you're playing on official servers, which is what probably most players do when they're just experiencing the game for the first time, and then you discover unofficial servers and you never go back, right? It's like you got to play on there. But anyways, I remember once somebody gave me a couple of turrets, regular automated turrets, like 7, I think, and I just remember being like, damn, man, whoa, my life has changed. This game is just free, so happy, like a little kid with a new toy.
Yeah.
And then after today, I got a little bug there stuck in my throat. After today, man, I've never experienced a hookup like today.
No. And for me, I don't know that I've had anyone be super nice before. Like usually, being nice for me has been not killing me when they had the opportunity to. I let you live, and So
here's your stuff back.
Yeah, again, super thanks to those guys, and. I saw things that I didn't know existed in the game, and I feel like I know a lot about that game. I'm in the thousands of hours, I think, probably at this point, of playing it, and I didn't realize some of those things even existed. And yeah.
Oh, dude, yeah. Anyone that is familiar with ARC, like you'll get this, but IFTNR and the Trailer ARC Boys, awesome tribe name. Thank you, tons. A huge shout out to you guys for the hookup. They basically like they're just an alpha tribe as far as I'm concerned on a couple of maps there, and they were basically just like, we're done playing. Here's all of our stuff.
Yeah.
And if you've played ARC before and you understand the dynamics of an alpha tribe, you know just about how much stuff we got. So it was just like,
well, and what's crazy is they had been raided. Like I think it could have even been more stuff. I think and even what's left is would have taken us months.
Yeah, like us, you and myself, with like jobs and stuff. Like and it's not that they don't or whatever. Like, but I think they've just been on much longer than we have, a couple of months more, and put some work into it. And it is an unofficial. Oh, sorry, I got the burps here. It is an unofficial boosted server, so you can get far much more done and tamed and collected, etc., built up than on an official. But still,
yeah.
I mean, we're talking. I had 600,000 on me, and then he mentioned 1.7 million in like the vaults or in the dedicated vaults. So what, like 2 million or more bullets ready to go.
Yeah, and
that takes forever to grind out, man.
Yeah, for our viewers' perspective,
2 million
that would,
advanced rifle bullets, man.
It usually takes. I can probably make about 12,000 a day. Like if I really work at it, on this server, like I might make about 12,000 bullets. Like far as if I just started with nothing, and went and got the resources to get it done, and it would take. I would say, and that's not just instantly. Like I'd still have to wait for things to process and be refined. Like I'd have to wait for wood to be turned into charcoal and, different resources to be refined down.
You got to grind down the rocks with the flint to make the spark powder, and then you got to mix it with the gun with the charcoal to make gunpowder.
And I would say,
you got to go and mine all the metal, melt it down.
And then crafting them also takes, that doesn't happen instantly. It's sort of a timed thing. So, yeah, I mean, you're looking at just wait time on those things. Like I would say, at least 6 hours to get those 12,000 bullets. So, yeah, I don't know that I fully understood it till I just thought it through like that.
You're looking at the dedicated storage thing, and there's just like a number on there, and it says like 609337. What does this mean? Oh, just 600,000 rounds. You guys can have them for your turrets. It's like, oh. Huh. I'm just like looking at Chuck in game.
Yeah, that's exciting. I'm excited to see where we go with it, and we hope to get some of our former tribe mates involved. And it's almost like I'm drunk with power already, though. It's like I think about what
like, what do I do now?
Go start threatening other players. Like,
oh, dude, you got to tell them what you told me earlier in the chat. That made me laugh so hard, man.
It's what, we're going to start selling bullets or something like that, and we're either going to buy them or we're going to use them on you.
No, that was funny too. But Tomahawk is all of a sudden he's like, So should we start talking shit?
No, it's so unlike me too.
Should I call someone out in the chat?
Yeah,
it's so fun. Because we're usually the pair, like we're both like super friendly there. Like we pull up on someone, it's like, hello, I'm friendly, And if things get aggressive, then we'll go into PvP mode.
Yeah,
and do what we got to do. But like Chuck's just like completely out of character for me. He's all like, should I start talking shit?
It's like, now I can back it up. Like I'm gonna start, this is like
we got a couple of gigas with over 400 melee. Let's go.
Yeah. Because I think normally like I would be so afraid that I would lose what that I had ground out. That what we had so much, but to have so much now, there's a little less fear of like I lose everything in my body and still have a good bit of everything again 10 times over somewhere else. So,
yeah. It seems like in that game you can reach a point where, unless you get literally like foundation wiped, like just completely wiped off the map, you get to a point of power where even if you get raided, there's still so much there. Like, I mean, remember when we went, he's like, yeah, we'll just merge and you can have everything. You can just have this. And he, gave us everything. He joined it and just ceded it all to us. And I remember walking up, you were there too, dude. We both walked up to one of his turret towers and we were like, you got raided? What?
Yeah.
It's like, so anyways.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. We're still kind of good stuff.
I hope we go like in really positive directions with it, and I'm excited to see where that goes. I know one thing I want to do is maybe try to go after a void wyvern, right outside our door there in the one new spot. Like,
oh yeah, on Genesis 2. So, oh man, not
it's
to
almost like a
continue
tech
on with this,
wyvern, like that's out there somewhere waiting.
Can
for
you
us.
get those? Are you able to tame those?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, I've watched a video of it a while back. I don't remember the mechanics exactly, but yeah.
Well, we're gonna have to get one then. I mean, I don't know if there's anything left we can get. Like, we almost I feel like we beat the game already. Like, we're in end game now.
Yeah,
we went from like mid game status to end game with all the stuff we got now. So I think now we just got to find a victim.
Yeah, raiding, I think, is our next move to some degree. Yeah,
oh man.
Yeah, maybe find those people that were trying to raid us today. That might.
Yeah, or maybe we can like avenge the trailer arc boys. We'll see.
Yeah,
we'll get after it.
Yeah, but yeah, it's fun to share that with our listeners. I think you can probably tell it's been a good day on ARC, and yeah, it's fun.
It's gonna be hard not to go right back to it after we're done recording. Like, you want to go? Let's go look at those new juicy tames that we got.
I know that'll be fun.
It's gonna be fun just to look at this stuff in the vaults and like not even like, oh, look at that.
Yeah.
Anyways,
yeah, the something that happens to Ovox and I both is like you end up in like you're just kind of thinking about what you're gonna do next in this game, and you end up just kind of running around in circles looking at everything. And I think I've got a few hours of that ahead of me.
I wanna like say no, that's not true, but it's definitely true. And I mean, and I don't know if you ever experienced this, but you feel like you've gotten a lot done in the game. Everything's like gas is filled, turrets are loaded. Tames are imprinted, everything's like good, and you just kind of like sit back there for a moment, just running around looking at everything, like admiring what you've worked on and got done.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it feels good, but it's like you say that this is so much stuff. You almost start thinking like maybe we should start a bank or something like where we sell bullets.
Yeah, like, start loaning tames or something. Yeah, or selling eggs.
Yeah, like the stories we heard from. Last week we were talking about like in Eve where the guy created a bank and all sorts of things. I don't know that the structure's there in this game, but you could almost do it.
And it sounds like the admins on the server we're on are going to start doing something like that. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. But
I think our next move has got to be just getting familiar with our new surroundings and learning the ropes. Like with everything, where everything's at, and just being prepared.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll get some more tribe mates because it's going to be hard as a duo.
For sure. Yeah.
So, Chuck, buying video games, man. What do you got for us? You got anything like you want to start off with before we dive into what it's like these days buying video games and what it was like back in the day when we were youngsters?
That I think right there you hit on it. Like what for you. When do you remember buying your first video game, and how did you sort of acquire it? Like, do you remember? I feel like probably, maybe for each of us, maybe our first ones might have been a gift as a kid or something. But because for me, I had an allowance at some point, and then I started mowing some yards and things like that. When did
I just. Do you think allowances even exist these days? Is that a thing still?
I don't know. I had one that was about $5 at
listener,
some point.
Did you have an allowance?
I remember getting $5 a week, son, and when I was like, under 10 years old or whatever, around that age or so, I would say I was raking in just a little bit of, just a little bit of spending money. And then, there were projects. I had to mow the yard. That was just part of my regular duties as, being a kid there at the house, getting to breathe and allowed to breathe in Dad's space. But yeah, you could.
So you rake in that allowance money, save up, and then you go buy yourself a video game?
Yeah. Or maybe you got some money as a gift, or something even for, like your birthday, and you kind of got to go spend it. Do you remember kind of a first experience of that?
Yeah, certainly do. My first experiences were also in the form of Christmases and birthdays. I think I sent you that picture of me getting a Game Boy, the original Game Boy. I must have been about 4, perhaps. It must have been around 1991 or 1992. And it's just one of those old Kodak color developed pictures of me, super stoked. That face, dude, that typical classic face. And that was the Game Boy, and I remember getting with it Tetris, and I think it was Super Mario Land. Uh-huh. It wasn't Mario World. I think it was Mario Land because it was on the Game Boy, and it was black and obviously the Game Boy it was like a grayscale or something like that. I don't remember, but that was the very first one I remember getting. But yeah, that was a Christmas scenario. You want to know more about like the first one that I bought though?
Well, and two, I think for me, like I may not even remember exactly the first one, but just as far as when you think of this subject, like what pops up in your memory, sort of.
100%. The first one that pops up in my memory that I know that I bought, and like I remember I went to. I want to say it must have been a Target. Mm-hmm. Could have been a different store, but it was in San Diego. Grandma's house. We went to a store. I bought the game, and it was a Nintendo 64 game.
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure it was a Nintendo 64 game. Yeah. And I remember it was a game that had like bugs in it, and you had to like kill the bugs. They were like alien bugs. And I'll try and bring it up on the phone here while we're podcasting just to see if I can get the name. I should have done that before recording, but dude, I remember it sucked. It sucked so bad, dude. It was the most glitched out game ever, man. Like it didn't. I couldn't tell you. I'd be making it up. I just remember it was very glitchy. It was so bad that it didn't work. Like there was nothing. There was no gameplay to like engage on, and I remember that. I remember it cost $30-$40. And I was very young. That was a lot of money, to just like, to like bang out like that. And I remember the game sucking. And in retrospect, man, it's such a funny, like reality of buying video games back then.
Yeah.
Just like, because what do you have in terms of like reviewing whether the game is going to be good or not? What were our resources back then in the 90s, or in your case, even back into the 80s a little bit?
Well, I think too, like painting the picture. I suspect for you, like it was for me, it was important for my parents to kind of teach me the value of a dollar, as they would call it, and you had to have respect for money. And my parents didn't have a ton of respect for video games, like as a positive expenditure. I think, I would say my dad just, besides thinking it was a waste of time, he would assume that game, as soon as I purchased it, would be worth less than, what I'd paid for it as a used video game. It's kind of a, he's not putting a lot of value on that fun time or whatever. So yeah.
It's something that, sorry to interrupt, but it was, for my parents as well, it was something that was keeping us away from the great outdoors in whatever turn, like whether that's doing baseball, football, basketball, doing chores outside, whatever that may be, these damned video games on the idiot box, as my mom used to call it, were keeping us away from the, more enriching things enriching things in life.
Yeah, and so like I say, you add that into like another lesson that was going on at the time, or another perspective, or, just dynamic of living as a kid with my parents. It was like, wisely spending that allowance somehow, and I think my dad would have totally preferred I just saved it, for a rainy day or something like that, or started saving for college or something crazy.
Yeah, like a savings account or something, an emergency fund.
But it was yours, and you got to do what you wanted to with it, or whatnot. So yeah, I think buying a video game just wasn't like he couldn't have saw the value of that. So that I feel like any time that I went to actually purchase some with my own money, I was in that. I was being judged in that environment or whatever. So it added an even more attention to that. Like I think I might have even, like, if I didn't like it, that in your scenario, I'd have been like, oh, this is great. It's like,
oh yeah, no, it's great, Dad. It's great.
It's got bugs, but it's a game about bugs. This is a creative choice.
No, I swear that game that I bought was horrible, man. Gosh, let me. I'll try and pull it up on my phone.
I started to see, there was a movie called A Bug's Life. I remember
that was a great movie, though, wasn't it? I think I remember that.
Yeah, and it probably came out way after the time period you're talking about, because we were probably talking about the late '90s. I'm guessing here somewhere.
Well,
when
did the Nintendo 64 come out? Was it like 2000 or 2001? No. 1997 or 96.
Yeah, because I know GoldenEye was on it, and it was in 97. Yeah, so it was probably a little before that. I would say 95, 94, somewhere in there.
Yep. Dude, let me see here. Bug game on Nintendo 64. Let's see what comes up. It's not A Bug's Life. Oh, were you talking about A Bug's Life on the Nintendo?
There was a video game, like a version of it, but I actually only ever saw the movie. I took my little nieces when they were little kids, and it's hard to get a kid. Like, you think a kid would enjoy a movie, but they got bored really quick. Like, and you're just like looking at me instead of the movie.
Oh, here it is, dude. It's called Body Harvest.
Ooh.
You know that game? Have you heard of
it? I'm picturing like
look at this.
Body.
I'm showing Chuck the picture.
I see why you might have got it though. Like the graphic,
dude, it
actually
looks dope, dude. It
does look
sick.
pretty dope.
And again, I'm not bagging on this game. I may have just bought a bad, cartridge. But I just remember the excitement. Like I went to the store. I saved up all this money as a little kid. I had no way to investigate. Busted the piggy bank. I didn't have any like Nintendo Power magazines. There was no internet that I could go like look at and like check out some game ranks before you buy videos like I do these days, or go on to Reddit, et cetera, so on and so forth. You guys know the deal. You guys and gals know the drill here with gaming. We check, unless like we're a dedicated like fan of a certain franchise and we're just like, yeah, pre-purchase. We're checking that stuff out. We've got resources, and even still, and we'll get into this, in a bit. But like, there's still like caveats to all that. But back in the day, man. Just getting a ride out of mom or dad was like pulling teeth. Like you gotta get to that bitch first. You know what I'm saying?
The specialty store,
Main Street's way like 12 miles away. Back, at least back in Oregon where we were living, that was out of the way.
Yeah. And
then even in California when we'd be visiting grandma, your closest like video game store was a bit out of the way back then.
It sounds like you're in a similar. I would say for me, it was a 30-minute drive to a nearby town, that would have a large enough store to get it. But
had a selection.
And I think that kind of leads me to my first experience. I would say was probably as a kid at Kmart, and I feel like there's a time period there where. I would say if you're in a Kmart or a Walmart today, the games are behind glass somehow. And
yep.
I want to say back in these days, they weren't behind glass, but they had this big old plastic thing on them. Like you couldn't you couldn't like put them in your pants or something because like almost how CDs were closed were sold.
You're right, dude.
Like it was in that thing, you know, and you could thumb through them or whatever, and you were able to look at the box at least, because you know once the glass comes up, like even though the box art in the back, like it kind of takes, like you got to go get a guy like with the key and like, you know, have him get the game out. And I always felt like awkwardly obligated to buy it. Like once I was like, hey man, can you let me in the case over here? And like, you know, they kind of like, and you look at the back and you're like, nah, no thanks.
Dude, that's so true. Because when I was still living in Oregon, we'd go down to like, it'd be Fred Meyer's or the Walmart, but mostly Fred Meyer. We'd also go just stores like that, and there'd always be this electronic section, and you'd always find the latest CDs.
Yeah,
you know, we'd be looking for that Nirvana back then, or any of those grunge bands. Blink-182 when they were still like just becoming known. Green Day had just released like Dookie and stuff like that, or Basket Case, whatever no, it was Dookie, that album. You know, Offspring was really starting to hit. And you'd be in that section, and then the next aisle over would be all the video games. And you're right, man. There'd be PlayStation 1, Nintendo 64, and they'd all be in these like thick, like there'd be like thick plastic protectors around them, like almost like chastity belts around each game or something. You're gonna put your fingers all over me. Might as well take me.
Yeah,
no, I'm just playing. But
at least you could look at them, you know, like you could look at the box and kind of.
But that I mean, that's kind of what's the point we're kind of getting at here is that, man, all you really could do is read the box, and that's all you could go off of.
You know, and I think if I liked them, if it was adapted from a movie, you know, I think I was going to try it. Like if, you know, I liked.
Really?
Yeah, I think so. I mean,
that's risky.
If I liked the movie, like I don't like have a specific scenario for you like that. I don't think I ever owned the Ghostbuster game, even though I like the movie or whatever. And it obviously gets great reviews, you know, from that time period. But, I would say too, I was a little willy-nilly about it. Like I just wanted a game. I think, and like you're talking about, once I got my grandma or whoever to take me there, like I was probably going to follow through with something, you know, even because a lot of times you get there and they wouldn't have what you wanted, you know.
Dude, 75% of the time.
Yeah, so you had to make a choice. Like you know, I was going to get something, you know, but you also weren't going to throw your money away either. Like, you know.
Yeah,
so.
it's like you went there for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle game. But because, you know, you've been hearing about it, like little Timmy next door happened to get it.
That's how you end up with Battletoads. Even though I love Battletoads, it's my favorite game. I always felt like it was the poor man's Ninja Turtle.
No, dude, that game has its own.
Yeah, it's legendary status for me. But like, I would always get there and like they wouldn't have what I wanted. You know, I might have saw it in the JCPenney wish book or something, you know, knew it existed and you know, like would go there for it. And
I think you should touch on that, Chuck, because that goes back even a generation before myself of when you'd see these things in these retail catalog magazines that people would get in the mail.
Yeah. I think Sears had one, and also JCPenney. I can't remember if Toys R Us had one. Toys R Us would have more like a something that would come in the newspaper, like a circular that you know, kind of listed games that they had on sale and that kind of thing. But yeah, you know, I think I've probably mentioned it in another episode. But around Christmas time, they would put out the you know, pre-Christmas catalog, and it would have these games in the JCPenney wish book, and like it. You knew, you know, what you were getting yourself into there. And our local JCPenney wouldn't have a lot in stock. Like you know, these were typically more like you had to order them. But at that time period, I would kind of use that to know what it was, maybe, and it might even have like a little bit of description. You know, it would show a big picture of it, and in that picture it would have letters by each item, and then down below it you would like
a little code.
Yeah, you would. No, I've seen it like you're talking about, but as best as I remember, it was just like it'd be like, you know, H, and you could see the front of the game box, and then down by H it would say, you know, Ms. Pac-Man, like it would kind of describe
the price and so on and so forth.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so that was like some information you would get about them. And then so when I was at Kmart, I would be kind of looking through that, and I think there was always kind of a bargain bin sort of game. Like you could tell how well a game did too. Like if it ended up in there, it was always kind of like it didn't do well, kind of thing. But
I think like, man, that's just it's crazy to think about, because today we just pull that up on our phone anywhere. Anytime, man. I could be on the throne. I could be ordering some tacos. I could be, at the gym, whatever. And at any moment, if the doubt comes into my mind, or like, oh yeah, what about that, that so-and-so game coming out? And I can go and find out anything, or as much as I need to, on the internet immediately on hand.
It's true.
But like back, like you just said, like back then, you get that Sears catalog, and it's all printed. It's in a magazine or like in a newspaper format. The reliability of it making to your porch or getting it in your own hands is, there's something to do there. You have to make that kind of happen. It's not just in your pocket. You can't pull it right out. That little, like in the catalog example, like you said, it'll be a little letter. You go down to the bottom, it says Mrs. Pac-Man. You might get a couple of more lines of description, and then that's it. That's what you know about the game.
Yeah.
There wasn't really a place to go for critiques or ratings or expectations or how it's going to do, how they expect it to do. You couldn't find any of that. You may be able to get the respective company's magazine. Like I remember Nintendo Power being very popular back in the day. And I know all the other companies had their own variations of magazines. But I think that usually, for the most part, kind of tended towards like, once the game had released, they would make these magazines with like tips and tricks and, like guides and et cetera, et cetera. It wasn't really like, about games that were going to come out. When it came to games that were going to come out or games that you didn't get yet, I mean, all you really had to go to were hopefully seeing the commercials on TV.
And
right? Because back then we had cable TV or switch antenna TV, and you just cross your, like whenever a video game commercial would come on, it would always be like, oh.
Yeah, especially like Saturday morning cartoons. Like,
yeah, man.
Like, listen, everybody, listen. Be quiet.
Be quiet. Oh, Dad, please, I want that for Christmas, please. My birthday's coming up, please. Whatever. It's just so different back then.
Well, and I guess once it's released, you kind of have word of mouth, like your friends, like if somebody has one, or especially if you get a chance to play it, you might have. The fact that you'd played it at the arcade and this was a port, from the arcade, like there were just more
as
like
the years went by
on the ground, like levels of intel, like at that time.
Schoolyard intel, man. Schoolyard intel.
Yeah, it's the word on the street. It was out there, and the word of mouth. It's kind of all you could really go for.
The word by the tetherball is. Boys behind the cafeteria are telling me some,
Yeah,
I haven't. Dude, but that was another thing. Oh, sorry to jump on you there, but that was another really dope thing about video games back in the day that I probably suspect does not happen anymore. Was like, you'd build a little collection of games, especially like if you're in the middle class, kind of range of household. You didn't have a like big old massive collection, you'd have your little stash, and you'd really enjoy like, lining them up or anything in alphabetical order, your little game cartridges. And then in the schoolyard, we've kind of touched on this before, Chuck. You'd get your friends, you'd be like, hey, so, what video games did Santa bring you, man? And you'd come to arrangements like, all right, well, as soon as you beat that, and as soon as I beat this, let's, I'll lend you Zelda Ocarina of Time. You lend me GoldenEye. We'll make the trade for about a month, and then we'll get back. And dude, like very serious handshake deals would take place, by the swing sets.
Yeah, that
You know?
video game black market there.
Dude, and like, I remember fist fights, when games wouldn't be returned, like little elementary style fist fights. Kids would start, throwing chingazos, as they say down here in Mexico.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, that was something. If my dad found out something like that, like, so-and-so had my stuff and like I it wasn't part of the arrangement, like that was a problem. You're going to be, you need
like
to figure out, hey, you need to
stuff.
get on your bike, son, right over there. Is what you need to do. Come back with that stuff. But I definitely remember sort of making some deals like that, especially with my cousins, and I'm sure we talked about it at school. I don't remember quite so much, and as you're saying that, I'm just thinking like how as a kid like how this little power you had to like you said, getting a ride was just the thing. Like a few times in my life I was able to walk to my school, but it's like. Yeah, how am I going to
Dude,
facilitate
it's like trying
this
to
trade?
convince we had to try, we were faced with convincing like brick walls, like these people didn't want to take us to go buy video games, and I'm talking about our parents. We love them so, but they're like, no, man, this is like, we're talking 80s, 90s. Video games were not what they are today. There weren't content creators making money on YouTube just off playing video games. It was a different world. So it was like pulling tooth and nail to try and just to get the like, all right, let's head over there. And I think 30 minutes or whatever,
Well, and I think our parents would try to put it in perspective of like something maybe they like trends or fads, like, say the hula hoop or something that they, had briefly been obsessed with and didn't realize that, it was sort of going to be a continuing thing. And, lo and behold, here we are doing a podcast about it, as full-grown adults. So take that.
With, what are you wearing there, Chuck? With what are those? Camouflage? Full-grown adults with what are those?
Right. Camo sweatpants. Like, the ultimate freaking redneck accoutrement to your wardrobe there.
What? I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Well, man. So I have an interesting, I want to say proposition, but just story from when I was a kid. At one point, the Radio Shack in our town started selling video games, and not only did they sell video games, they sold used video games. There was kind of this. I started to say older guy, but I imagine he's probably about our age now, or close to my age now at the time. And he ran the Radio Shack, and he had a son that was in our school that was maybe a few grades behind me, so I didn't know him personally or whatever. But
no, because that's like a lot back then as a kid.
Yeah,
when you're a kid, another kid that's a few grades behind.
He was a kid.
It's like, okay, man, get back of the line.
Yeah, exactly. We weren't
huge difference back then.
Yeah, we weren't in the same little clique there or whatever. But so he also sold football and baseball cards, which I collected, and he had like this glass case that had some of that kind of stuff in there.
So much nostalgia.
And he also had video games, and the used ones, they were also in a glass case, so it wasn't as bad as so much like having to go get the guy with the key at the Walmart. But you just simply pointed to it and asked him to pull it out, and he would show it to you. And he also played video games and worked on computers in the back of the store, so he was a source of information about the game, like whether or not it was that good or not. But he was also a businessman. And I necessarily wasn't. I was pretty. I don't know. I've always. I think a lot of people have different relationships to money. I've always been really free with it. If I had it, it went pretty quick. Like I had to, kind of force myself to hold on to it. If I was saving up for something big, and so I remember being in a scenario where I had a Joe Montana rookie card, but you got to realize,
what did you do?
No, but hear me out. Joe started in, I would say, 1981, and this is probably around 85 or 6, I would say, somewhere in there. And so the story's not been told. We don't know, he's not, throwing the Immaculate Reception yet. Or no, I guess that's the Pittsburgh pass. But there's like this one that he throws to Chris Collinsworth that you always see, against the Cowboys. Like that hasn't happened yet. Like, so but he's good. It's obvious he's going to be a Hall of Famer and that kind of thing. And the card's only a few years old. So it probably, came in a pack of gum, but now it's worth, $14 or maybe about a video game, I would say, somewhere in there. So I don't remember the exact specifics, but I traded a Joe Montana rookie card for Super Dodgeball. And I love Super Dodgeball. Like don't get me wrong. And I want to say like another questionable game, that is lost to history at this point. I don't even remember. It was, just a filler. Like for the trade or whatever.
I'll take that too.
Yeah, yeah. And I remember like throughout my life, like I've gone through different periods where I thought, wow, that was dumb. If I'd have held on to that, this card would be worth this amount of money now. And like if you go on eBay now, I don't remember any of the condition to it, and I can tell you, I was a kid, so I probably, had handled it like a lunatic and messed up the corners and stuff. Like I probably had it in a little sleeve, but I hadn't handled it like with white gloves exactly, so it wouldn't get rated really high and card They
who knows, man?
They have this system like where they rate them like up to 10, I think, and it's all about like how centered it is, like even things that would have been out of my control. But so I don't know, how well it would turn out, but I would say now it probably would be worth around $1,200. But I also think like if maybe I had kept that Super Dodgeball game new in box, sealed, and had it on the internet today, it would be maybe $100. I think you can get like, a used cartridge that may not work or something for like $10 or something. But like,
I don't know about that. We'd have to see.
I want to say like I say, as much as you would expect that Joe Montana card to have been taken care of, if I had taken that same care with that new game, I would say in 1992, I would only been able to sell it for less than it originally cost. But I would say now, at this point, it would also be worth some money. So it's almost like throughout time, both of those things have sort of, evolved. It's still not a good deal. Like,
I just don't have any idea what a rookie Joe Montana card could possibly be. And it's not worth bringing up necessarily right now, but you traded video games you traded trinkets for video games. I did that once. I did that once too, man, and it was a bad idea. I remember I traded a very, very old, I should have made this trade. I feel bad about it today because it was a gift from my great grandmother, and like my family always used to tell me, you don't gift gifts.
Mm-hmm.
And I can see where that's generally like, you don't gift gifts, but like there's occasions where I guess it could fly. It depends. But anyways, I remember having this camera. It was a film camera, one of the, and it was an old school one, like one that today a lot of camera, photographers and all that stuff, they look for these types of cameras.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
The
like,
artisticness of it and the thing.
Yeah, because they're so vintage and they take a unique style of picture, so on and so forth. So I had one of those style cameras, and I remember trading it for a regular necklace style stopwatch, and which costs like nothing, and like a very simple Super Nintendo game. I don't remember which one it was. And I just, in retrospect, I know that was a really bad trade. The video game, I didn't even want the video game. I just accepted it. I wanted the stopwatch because I thought it was so cool that you could clock somebody's time.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only reason. Like, that's just how much of a little naive kid I was. Like, look, you can start the time and stop it. And I think it was a bigger kid, an older kid that I must have thought was cool or something. I don't remember, but totally like got me like just blown away by what a stopwatch could do. And that was the only reason, man. I'm like, just to take this shitty ass fucking camera. I don't want. No, man, it was such a bad trade. I should have kept that camera. Anyway, so I know what you mean.
Yeah, and I think one of the reasons this one sticks out for me is I think, we're talking about like getting a ride. Like I facilitated this through my dad. I think like I had my dad drop it off and pick up, the thing, and he did it for me surprisingly. But I remember, feeling judged, sort of like by what I was doing or whatever, but they were mine, to do with as I willed or whatever. I had my football card collection, kind of going back there, and it was kind of my jam. It was almost a currency. Like, as you can see.
Dude, I used to have like back in the day, like not to deviate from video games, but just with in that same era, kind of, it was, well, I'm sure it spanned for many decades, but like I had a big binder that you'd open up, and it just had page after page of plastic sleeves with baseball and football cards.
Yeah, dude.
And collecting those was like one of the things you did back in the day. Yeah. And then I had another set of binders that had all Pogs. And then I had another set of binders that had all slammers, which would be thick plastic slammers, saw blade slammers, metal, like the thick metal ones, different sizes and cuts for different types of Pog flipping. Dude, I loved Pogs. I was a Pog
See,
savage.
I missed that. That was just a little bit, I was a little bit too old, I think, when that was going on. Like,
having binders of compact discs with all your music.
Definitely had that.
You order them from the BMG magazines, man. So you had to get all this stuff from magazines, man. Yeah, you couldn't just you couldn't just pull it up on an app.
Yeah.
Oh man.
No,
So
those are good memories.
They're great memories. But do you have anything else before we kind of fast forward a little bit? Because, I mean, it seems to me like, well, I should let you answer that question before I just keep babbling on. You got anything else?
Yeah.
This older era of video games? Oh, Chuck, do you know what the very first video game was that was ever commercially sold?
And we're talking anything like including arcade cabinets and all that.
Anything. The very first video game ever sold. Listeners, if you know the answer to this, well, I was going to say let us know, but I don't know where you would let us know. You can hit us up and we'll shout you out if you know the answer. What the very first video game? No, because you're just going to go and Google it, listeners. I know how y'all are.
We see
They're just going to go. We see you. You're already Googling it right now.
Yeah.
Now, how about this? Let us know what your very, very first video game was that you ever purchased, the farthest back that you can remember. Doesn't matter what kind of platform or so on and so forth. Just let us know what the very first video game you ever bought was, and we'll shout you out here on the podcast on the next episode.
Yeah.
Hit us up at ovoxandchuk@gmail.com. We'll leave the email in the description, but yeah, let us know. That would be cool to see what y'all were getting after way back in the day.
I feel like someone out there gave blood for a video game somewhere.
Yeah, take it.
A little bit of plasma.
Oh, man. But anyways, very, very first commercial video game ever sold. Chuck, hit me.
CompuSpace? Is that it?
Was it CompuSpace? I think it was Space Wars.
Space Wars. Yeah.
What year was that? Do you have that there? Let me bring that up. We'll use a little cheat code. Google it real quick.
Is it 71?
I think you got it, man. Let me read this real quick. I'm reading from just to drop a little new wave history here on the gaming.
Well, Nolan Bushnell.
That's our man, bro, from Atari, but I'm reading from the Smithsonian site, so we can, I think we can all hope this is a pretty reliable site here.
It's legit.
Smithsonian.edu. So, again, this isn't the very first video game. It's just the very first commercially sold, as far as we could find in our research. It says here, a creative young entrepreneur named Nolan Bushnell remembered playing Space War during his years as a student at the University of Utah. Okay, so it was Space War then that those MIT students put together.
Uh-huh.
I believe so. Yeah, and it looks like he played it when he was in university. So he was in the University of Utah, played Space War that was created in the 60s by those MIT students, those three dudes. Sorry, I'm losing it here. So Bushnell began to think of ways that the game could be retailed. Bushnell had past experience with amusement park arcades and had witnessed firsthand the popularity of pinball machines. He believed that Space War would make a successful coin-operated machine. So, and I'm still reading from the article here. In 1971, Nutting Associates, a coin-op device manufacturer, released Bushnell's idea as computer space. So you were kind of right, man. Yeah, okay. Computer space. That's fair enough. Computer space, yeah. However, while Space War had been an enjoyable game, computer space proved too complex for the casual game player to understand quickly. The changes that were required to convert the two-player Space War to a one-player game made computer space frustratingly difficult for those who did learn how to play. Though computer space was a flop, Bushnell still believed that coin-operated video games could be successful after seeing a demonstration of... Oh, okay, I don't need to go on there, but I do remember that even though it was kind of like a flop, I think he sold 100,000 units or something more. Like, it wasn't a complete failure. He did make some dough.
No, I for some reason the number that's coming to mind was like 8,000 of them or something. But I don't think they were cheap. Like they were a pretty good sized machine there, and I think it was profitable what he did.
Yeah, and the technology back then was way more expensive, and I think that was where, again, not to deviate off of the video game buying experience, but part of why they wanted to create like the Atari console and why Magnavox Odyssey also created the console, I think in 1972, a year later, was because like it was much easier for them to get gaming to the person at home on their own TV, which was still expensive. Like I think $300-400, to get their little, a TV at home. But that was much more feasible. Here's your own video game console for your own TV than them getting these units that I think were literally over $10,000.
Yeah, I think it had like a vector screen on it, and it was like $15,000, and
yeah, man,
it looks. Like one of the takeaways I had of those videos, actually, like when it showed him kind of playing it there at like MIT, even though it's small, like it looked pretty interesting to me. like it's in black and white.
Did you see the size of the controllers? There's these big, massive boxes, dude, with a little spin wheel and a little click.
And I feel like we've all played Asteroids. I think that's pretty similar to what they were playing, but what they had there looked a little better than, Asteroids to me. Like there was a sharpness to the graphics that I don't remember Asteroids having, and the physics looked a little. There was a little something going on there. Like I can see how that was fun, especially at the time. I think being the first video game sold really
commercially,
laying that groundwork that this is a profitable thing. Like it's important that we look at that, and acknowledge that's crawling before we walk kind of thing, right there for sure.
And like just to hit the other side of that coin and regarding what the first video game ever sold was, not commercially, but just the first video game ever sold. If what we could find is accurate, and this might be incorrect, but it's everything I looked at suggests this, but it looks like these guys from MIT that were, just doing research on computers. I think what they were. Here, I'm going to read from the article again. It's easier. That way I'm not just stumbling over words here. Quote, it was this mindset that led a group of MIT students during the 1960s to create one of the first and most groundbreaking computer games. Student Steve Russell and his friends were granted access to the school's new PDP-1 computer, and what provided that they used it to create a demonstration program that utilized as many of the computer resources as possible and taxed those resources to the limit. And what they did was ended up creating Space War. And then Space War, when you actually looked at it, because of what they were tasked with doing, when you looked at it, you knew that little computer game that they were playing was effectively using the entirety of the system's resources. Like it was just maxing it. And then again, if I'm right here, based off what I've researched, they sold it to other universities for doing research with. So it wasn't like a commercial sell, but I guess, if they did in fact sell them to the other universities and not just like give them the programming, those were the first sales.
Yeah.
Back in the 60s.
It's interesting to think about that.
It is, man. It's crazy.
I just wonder, like, if we could go back and interview those folks, and ask them where they predict this would go, what they would say.
Well, according to the very, very, very first dude, I think, that created a video game back in 1958, I think his name was William Higginbotham. He created Tennis for Two, and that game, like, he didn't think it was going to go anywhere. Like he was working on physics and nuclear what is it called? Non-proliferation. He was like working on the nuclear, like he joined part of a nuclear committee later on. Like he did a lot of other great work that has nothing to do with video games, but he's remembered for Tennis for Two.
Yeah, it sounded like they had like a computer that was designed to predict the trajectory of missiles or projectiles, and they used it to make a tennis game.
Oh, look at this! Wait a minute. Yeah, and that's when you see that box I was describing with the clicker and the wheel. Yeah, it was actually on Tennis for Two, man. It was just like a click, just this huge box, just with a big like metal, like old school push button. It's so funny. Like you can see all this too.
The ball looked good, I thought. Like in that, I remember from that video just thinking, it looked fairly realistic how the way it was bouncing. Not so much the picture of the ball, like there were no shadows or anything like I would think of in a version of that today. But the ball.
Yep.
It seemed to be following.
Like it had good geometry and all that stuff going on. It was a lot. It made sense. Like it just like, oh yeah.
And you could see how at the time that must have been mind blowing. Like
oh man.
Yeah,
dude, just like what? Like you can control what's happening on the screen.
Yeah.
What?
And I can play against a buddy. It's Tennis for Two.
yeah. Not uno, dos.
Yeah.
Tenis para dos.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's cool. So I wanted to drop that just kind of like, if we're going to talk about what buying video games is like, we had to bring up what the very first sold games were, commercially and non-commercially. So that's what it appears to be. We've got Computer Space and Space War and Tennis for Two. Those are like the first. Yeah, Computer Space was the first commercially sold video game in a coin-op arcade box type thing. And then, I don't know, I guess we could say that the Magnavox Odyssey was the first console game sold commercially. They were selling games. But the first game ever sold was the Space War from those guys at MIT. Okay, so fast forward a little bit. It seems like the sale of video games and the purchasing experience kind of maintained itself for a long time, kind of like without any real grandiose changes up until the internet age when things started going online. And you could actually start looking at you could go to websites and look at cheats, tips, comments, like there were definitely a lot of like cheat code websites. I remember going to them all the time. I remember getting Grand Theft Auto 3 for the first time and going to www.cheatcodes.com. And then, you could find all the cheats for accessing all the weapons, God mode and stuff. And those websites would also include commentary, critiques, reviews. So that started to kind of help a little bit in terms of getting an idea of buying of what you were going to get into if you were going to buy so-and-so game. But that's really it, at least as far as I can remember. You still had to go to the store, look at the box, and I don't, at least on my part, Chuck, I don't know about you, but describing that experience of having uncertainty, the game being a mystery, saving up for it, convincing your parents to take you, et cetera, all of that, in describing it, I don't mean to describe it as a negative thing. I actually really enjoyed all of that build up.
Yeah.
You know?
I feel like for me, like I said, it kind of started out at a Kmart, and there was like I was trading things there at the Radio Shack, and probably Walmart eventually came to our town, and then it became a period like you would go to the mall, and there would be a toy store in there called KB Toys, I think was one of them, and that would be a place to get games, and then I want to say Toys R Us would typically be detached from the mall, but it might be like in the same parking lot area, and it had this huge video game wall where you'd have the box would be. It wouldn't be there, but they would have a printed copy of it, and you would get like a slip.
Yeah, you're
for
right,
the game.
dude.
Yeah,
dude, you're so. Oh
you
my
had to
gosh,
go to
you
the.
just totally reminded me of.
Remember the little like video game jail that they had there, like where it was a person's job to kind of be in this little area, and you went up and handed them that slip. And first, like, you would see the game and you would think it was still there, but if there weren't any slips in the little container in front of it, they didn't have any in stock. But if there was one, you got that slip and you carried it around while you were in Toys R Us, shopping for whatever else. And then like kind of the registers were here, and then over in the far right corner of the front of the store, as you're facing out of the store, there was this what I call the video game jail, and it was like this little room that was like a secured area that had a glass kind of window, and the person, you were like, I'm getting a copy of,
Dude, you just brought back so many memories. Yeah. And I guess what you're touching on really is how the game purchase experience kind of advanced and evolved in those years between what we could, I guess, call the beginning and where we are now, is that while it didn't change a whole bunch, there were a lot more places popping up.
I wanted to go immediately to GameStop and at this point in our discussion and say, when do you first ever remember going to one of those, or do you, or a similar store?
I've never been to a GameStop.
Oh, no kidding! Yeah,
I don't think so. At least maybe I have. Maybe I did go to one in Guadalajara once.
I want to say there like there was a tower like. At some point, there was a version of what I used to call the record store, where I would go get CDs and things like that. That was called Tower. It was a version of Tower Records that also sold video games. But after the toy stores in the mall being the video game source, and a lot of times they would have them right behind the counter. Like they would also have them locked up, and I don't think there was like another part of the store that you went and messed with anything. You just had to stand there and say like, I want such and such video game. You kind of had to have it, kind of already in your mind, sort of. And there might have even been a poster that had what they had over there or something, and or the latest releases type thing. But I think it kind of went through that time period, and then after that, GameStop came to the mall, and it kind of became the GameStop, because they sold used video games. Well, probably the first time since I remember, being at the Radio Shack, like you actually could get a used copy of it, and sometimes it was a good deal and sometimes not.
Oh man, and this was just like the era where all these new little things were popping up. Like you could get. Like there were so many more peripherals, like when these proper video game stores started popping up, or stores started to kind of like manufacture within their own establishments a proper video game section. Yeah, like you described. Before that, it was just like you'd hopefully find a large enough store, and they'd have like a little spot, like a little kind of like a quarter of a wall with a few games, or just like a single glass cabinet with a couple of games, and oh man, slim pickings. And as things advanced, like you mentioned, more dedicated stores started popping up all over the place, especially in malls, because this was the time that the mall was just hitting hard, man. Hanging out at the mall was the place to be, because you get all your savings. Summertime would hit, vacations would hit, and you'd have all your savings from the school year of your allowance. Back in the day, we'd get allowances. Not really sure if that's still a thing. And you'd have all your money saved up. You'd go to the mall, you'd buy your favorite video games, and then with whatever you had left, you go hit up the arcade, get a piece of pizza, flirt with some cuties, you know what I'm saying? Get a milkshake, Taco Bell, I don't know. Oh man, good times. And then what I was going to say is that as these more dedicated stores popped up, you'd really feel and I'm talking kind of towards the 2000s, post 2000s, up to the 2010 kind of ish, a little bit. When you'd walk into these dedicated gaming stores, it was kind of like a sense of, I don't know if this is the right word, but vindication, like
validation,
it was like,
sort of, yeah.
Validation. You'd like, because your parents would walk in and you could kind of see like they'd be like, man, this is becoming a non-stoppable force.
Yeah.
When you go to like, they're just being like, video games are like an outcast thing they're like, okay, now we've got dedicated stores. It was kind of like, so what were you saying about video games going nowhere?
Like, I could get a job here, apparently.
Looks like they're dishing out paychecks, aren't they?
Yeah. They might be hiring.
Yeah, and you'd go into these places and instead of just seeing a few video games, you'd see walls packed, posters, toys, trinkets, gamer guides, stickers, shirts, merch of all sorts. Like, you were going into a place where you really felt at home.
Oh yeah.
As a young kid gamer, I guess that's kind of what I'm trying to transmit here. You'd walk into these places and it'd just be like, oh,
yeah. These are my people.
It's like the Halo song would come in.
The gates
like,
open up. Oh.
Yeah. Like, little doves come and land on your shoulders as you're walking in. Like, oh god,
You're like, hey,
nipples all hard and shit, fully erect.
I can tell you 100% sure, if we had somehow convinced my dad to come into a mall, it wouldn't have phased him. It wouldn't have validated shit for him. He would have said some shit like, I used to call him the Dream Crusher. He would say. He would say, so this is your life's ambition, huh? It's like you're going to work at the mall here.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah. Gotta love our parents, man. Gotta love them.
Yeah. He wouldn't set foot in the mall. He wouldn't have been that crazy. That was always a trip with my mom and my sister. He might, send some order for some new underwear or something.
Yeah, some new Levi's or a pair of boots.
Yeah, just get me some.
I might need a new cover, honey.
Something to wear.
Bring me a hat.
Next week or something. Something if he had coming up or something. But yeah, other than that, no, sorry. But I'm trying to
stop by that army surplus and bring me a couple of them throwing knives. What do I mean, in Southern Oregon, dude, there's an Army Navy surplus kind of like right up the main boulevard from a. Yeah. Anyways,
dude, I grew up on
off
that
topic.
stuff. The stuff that came from Vietnam was available when I was a kid, and just I had one of everything, like face paint, you name it. So yeah.
Anyways, so I'm sure there's going to be some things here that we skip or gloss over or don't give enough attention that would count as evolutions in the video game purchasing experience. But I know we certainly haven't experienced all of that stuff. But what would be the next kind of like evolution in your memory, Chuck, of like going like an evolution in the sense where you went, well, this is different?
I think for me, it was when I bought a game by the somewhat means like we've described, I would say from a GameStop or something like that. And I came home and I tried to play it and it said, this needs to be downloaded before you can play. And
dun dun dun.
I'm like, what the? And
say it.
You might have heard me talk about like we have a farm that has a cabin on it that doesn't have internet at this time period. So I've like brought this over to there, like kind of spending a weekend, doing a lot of things outside, but at night and rainy days, I'm gonna play this video game and I can't play it. Like
I'm putting it in, but it ain't working. I know, man. I'll never forget that.
Yeah, it's just like, and I want to say I even ended up in a scenario where I did have internet, but it was like it wasn't dial-up, but it was incredibly slow, like satellite type internet at the time, and you could start trying to get it. I think the game was probably Rainbow Six, one of the Rainbow Six games, and yeah, it was just. I just couldn't play it. Like, had to get some download because, and I bring that up to kind of bring us to ultimately we're going to be downloading these things as we do today. Like, there's no box, there's no liner notes.
Your first,
none of that.
yeah, that was your first encounter with that. I mean, what would that? That would have been on the PlayStation 4,
Somewhere
like when
there.
you just got it. I don't know if the 3 was download yet.
I would have said 3, but it's not super clear. I
It
think
must have been on the 4, like right when it just came out. You must have had that 4 lined
it even
up
gets
or something.
muddier too, because it's like a year or two later they'd have the slim version of the last generation console, and I bought a lot of those too. Like that kind of So I don't have that memory super clear in my mind, but I just remember being like, well, okay, take that back over to mom and dad's house and where the internet exists, and see if I can
Absolutely. That's kind of, gosh, I'm trying to remember. See, that would have been the same for me. I remember I had kind of a period there where I wasn't playing too many video games, or at least I didn't have my own system. I was playing video games. It was during that college period. I've talked about it before in previous episodes, where my roommates kind of had all that stuff already, and we were all living in the same joint. So it was in the living room, and we played a lot of FIFA and Call of Duty and stuff like that. This is around the 2010, 2011-ish period. And at that time, it was still standard. Like, I think they were on PS3s and the Xbox, one of the Xbox iterations, but it was still like you put the game in and you're going. Like, you didn't have to download anything. And then I came home back to Baja, and I remember chatting with my brother, and he's like, man, you got to, next time you come up, let's get you a PlayStation 4 and we can game together. We can stay connected and just do because he'd already been into it a little bit. And that was still really like a new concept to me, to just be able to so easily put headphones on and use a regular internet connection to connect with someone somewhere else in the world. And he was telling me about the PlayStation party chats and stuff. And, and I was just kind of like, all right, that sounds great. And I remember I went to Oregon, went to Walmart, experienced that feeling, but as an adult now with adult money, and I went in and I bought a PlayStation 4 and I bought a couple of games. And I remember I bought some games, but somebody lent me Battlefield 1. Or they sold it to me for a very cheap price. That's right. Someone in Oregon sold me their Battlefield 1. And I got back to Mexico, and that was the first time I experienced that too. I put the CD in and I had to download it. And it took forever, dude. It took forever. That's something certainly new that we never had to deal with before.
Yeah.
Just, downloading the game. Like, why do you have to download the game? Now I enjoy it more. We can talk about that too, but that first time, I'll never forget it. It took forever. Well, it was like a 60-something or 80-something gigabyte download. And, on my horrible internet here, that's like, they say it's 10 megabytes, which is like nothing compared to what some people... What's your megabytes? Like 500 or some crazy shit?
I think it's 1 gig.
Holy shit, yeah. So I got 10 megas. But when the rubber meets the road and I look at my download speed as I'm downloading something, and this is to date, like if I started downloading right now, for example, it's like 1.2 megabytes per second.
Wow.
It's horrible, man.
Yeah, it's
amazing. So it takes a whole night for me to download a game.
Yeah, that is frustrating. It does seem to perform pretty well, though, like when you're playing Warzone and whatnot.
Yeah, as long as I turn everything else off. Even just to record this podcast and have a good solid connection with you all the way over there in Tennessee, I got to turn everything off.
You're like, all right, Grandma, we're turning off the oxygen for a little while here.
No, not that. Just the internet stuff. You'll be all right. Take a deep breath.
Take a couple deep breaths.
Here we go. No, I'm just kidding. That's funny.
I'll turn this fan off.
Oh my goodness. But yeah, man, I'll never forget that. And that really was just that right there for me, at least in my video gaming experience, was a paradigm shift. It was a real step forward. Like, things changed.
Yeah. I was thinking earlier, even how and when these things change, like the next generation, I don't know ultimately that they're ever going to know what it, like you talked just now about buying a used video game. And I'm thinking about the nuances of that. Like I know one thing that you probably did was you opened that thing up, you stuck your finger down into that middle of that CD, and you turned it over and looked at it, like to see how.
Oh my gosh, dude! Yes, just to make sure it was new, or like because they'd be like great quality, semi-new. You know, and oh man, dude, that's so true. Fuck, dude.
Yeah, you know.
I mean, is buying used video games even a thing anymore?
That's what I'm saying, and that's one of the things that you know, a quiet way that they're making more money off us than they used to. That market when we solely download these games, that market doesn't exist. Like I can't.
It's gonna come, Chuck. I know you still like to buy hard CDs too, in a kind of a collector fashion, but there's gonna be a day, man, when these manufacturers, these, you know, they're just gonna be like, we're done. The numbers aren't there. It's a numbers game. There's gonna be a point where the numbers don't add up, and it's
probably a greener practice, I would say too.
Yeah.
For the environment, you know, like.
Yeah, you're right about that.
Yeah.
I suppose, you know, less plastic, certainly. And whatever kind of techie-related minerals that they're probably expropriating from some third world country at slave labor wages. Yeah, you're right about that, man. Yeah. So hopefully we'll see when that happens. In fact, what would you guess? How many years out do you think we're gonna start seeing like publications on news feeds and gamer feeds and whatnot saying, "Oh, so and so company has pulled the plug on manufacturing hard copy video game." You know,
I would say.
What do you think? 5
to 6,
10?
yeah. And there there'll still be like somebody that just sort of that's their gig, that's their gimmick. You know, maybe they make collectible versions of something. You know, maybe still yet but it'll go.
I think PlayStation's going to be one of the first to be like, we're done. I mean, why else would they create a digital edition? Yeah. I think it's just kind of a hint of the direction they're trying to take.
Oh, I see. Yeah, what you're saying. Like, yeah, they wouldn't do that at all if it wasn't really coming in the works. Yeah.
I think it probably just makes more sense for them too. I think the idea is it makes more sense for us as the gamers because everything else we do is pretty much on a cloud. You know, you got your Apple Cloud, your Google Cloud, or Google Drive, or whatever. These are just different iterations of memory clouds. PlayStation got a cloud too. Xbox, you know, all these, you know, PC with Steam, and like we're not. Dude, do you remember? Oh man, speaking of buying video games in boxes, do you remember ever seeing like when you'd go to GameStop or any of these stores, or like in my case, it was Fred Meyer back in the day. That was one I used to go to a lot. It was in Grants Pass, Oregon. Go in there and you'd see like the Nintendo games, the PlayStation and such, and then there'd be a wall with only computer games, man. And I don't know if you ever remember, but the computer games would come in these giant ass boxes, dude. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah,
dude. Why, man? It's
phone
the
book
same.
size.
Dude, they're like massive phone book sized boxes, like Quake 2, and it'd be in this huge, ginormous box, and then once you opened it, it would just be a CD, like just the same as the PlayStation.
Reasons,
yeah, like
I think I remember the Commodore 64 boxes being like that, and the floppy disk being fairly large. It still was way bigger than it needed to be for it, but I think, you know, that probably is just a little bit of it, and but I totally remember what you're thinking, and that was kind of like something I didn't get involved in at the time. So I that was like a foreign world to me a little bit.
Same with me, because remember when I was I don't remember what episode it was in, but it was the online gaming episode. Remember when I was talking about how it was just so difficult for me to figure it out? You know, install CD, execute.exe, run setup,
format / space.
Yeah, like you had to be like a young coder just to get the game to run and shit, you know. So
yeah, and if you left like 2 spaces where there was one, or just the whole shebang didn't work. Like
yeah, dude, you might like
syntax error. Like,
freaking Inspector Gadget blow your computer up on accident types, you know.
Yeah.
Execute.
Yeah,
It's yeah, man. But so yeah, I kind of same here. I didn't want to have anything to do with PC games back in the day. Like it wasn't until more recent times that PC gaming is kind of like, some would argue that like if you're gonna game on a PC, like for frames and just control and stuff like that, and customization, etc. And of course, I think both of us enjoy playing Warzone a lot more on PC. And like PC is gaming on PC is a much different experience these days than it was in the 90s. Believe you me.
It is,
dear listener. Tell you what. So if as a gamer, if you're in a place where you can have a little bit of all those things and experience them, that's a true delight. But yeah, man, especially for any listeners out there that are like born, let's say post internet or social media onward, like just imagine, like, the only place you're going to get any information on your games that you enjoy is like in a magazine that you got to go find and buy and like hope, or you're not going to get any of that. And you just got to like, try to in a time when gaming was certainly looked at, not as openly, maybe. I don't know what the right wordage is, but like, parents
less mainstream.
I think most parents back then were just like, hell no with video games. So it was just a completely different experience, and I guess that's what we're kind of trying to help recreate for anyone out there that never experienced that. But man, a lot of nostalgia comes with it.
Yeah, it's interesting, like I say, to see parts of it go away like that that folks will never know about. And
it's like it's psychological, man. It's like if you don't have as much access to it, you really enjoy it more. You don't take it as much for granted, I suppose.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of what I'm trying to touch on here, is that like now I can, we can close up this podcast and I can just go onto my phone real quick and see what the latest deals are, or the PlayStation Plus subscriptions and different in different subscription models. And if you sign up for this, you'll have access to over 300 games. And like, I can do that at the touch of a button, and it's so easy. Like, I can just go to I like this game. Let me check it out real quick before I buy it. Go on to YouTube. Such and such review, or such and such before you buy, or like just get well informed on a game and buy it in a heartbeat. And I can like instruct my devices to start downloading it from my phone, and it's just like, and don't get me wrong, great. I love it all. It's great, and I'm excited for how it's going to continue to evolve, with VR and the next iterations of gaming and connectivity, and oh man, fun stuff is coming. But there's something to be said for buying video games back in the day.
Definitely. So I think like in a good like side thing to keep with that is just an open mind to the future, not be that person that's like, well, this isn't the way I remember, and be open to those new changes and just kind of enjoy both. I think is kind of a fun exercise, and I certainly like cherish these memories, but at this point it is kind of nice not to have to, we talked about 75% of the time going there and them not having what you want. Boy, they always got what you want right there now. Like,
yeah, and like
if it's out, it's there.
Yeah, and if you get it and end up hating it, like it's a different feeling. Yeah. Like back then it was like, if the game sucked, I'm trying to remember the feelings it would cause, and I'd be lying if I said I could remember it. But I just remember it being real troublesome, like hard. I was like, damn, man, I just spent all my, like.
Well, and I think one thing
and now, like if you buy a game now and you don't end up liking it, like, it's on you.
Well, and two, I think that's tempered by like with PlayStation Plus and things, like we get free games. Like you mentioned this kind of in our pre-discussion a little bit of where you could you get a couple games for free each month that are quality games.
I just got, and anyone that has the PlayStation Essential subscription knows this, but Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order is free this month. That game is sick, dude. I've been playing it. It's sick. So, I cannot believe it's and then when you get 2 games a month free like that, it's like
kind of evens the score a little bit. Yeah. Like if I do get a turd or whatever, I feel like in the end I'm still coming out ahead. As far as my PlayStation purchasing goes, kind of thing. And so I'm kind of interested to see where that goes, and I'm wondering what's out there that we don't know about. Like, is there a place maybe on the dark web or something where this stuff, like these files, can get traded for free, I imagine? And,
oh, certainly, dude. Yeah, I mean, it's probably not so easy to get away with because now, I got to ask, do you want to do a quick bathroom break?
Yeah, let's do it.
We'll be right back, listeners.
Right.
Yeah, so I was just saying that, back in the day, when you get a game, you'd get it, and then that was it. There was no further connectivity. You'd plug it in, play. There was wasn't an internet connection, so I kind of forgot what we were getting after. But I was just going to say that games were gamers could tinker with games, change them up, switch them, modify them, and so on and so forth. And now with the connectivity and stuff, there's a real oversight of the gaming community and code of conduct and rules and all that stuff. You know what I mean? That's also much different.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that what we were talking about? I don't remember anymore before our bathroom break. I totally lost train of thought.
Best not to dwell on that.
Listeners right now are like, what the hell is Ovox talking about?
And the bonus question is, what were we just talking about?
Cheers to that.
Yeah. I definitely think that the changes that have happened are probably for the best, and it's going to be interesting to kind of see where that goes. I think, far as in the timeline of our discussion, we're kind of at the point where we are now, where every game, even if I did go buy the CD or the disc or whatever, I would still have a ton of downloading to do and continually have to do throughout the game. There's updates constantly.
That's a huge point, Chuck, what you just mentioned, because maybe that's what I was trying to touch on here before I totally lost my groove. You'd get a game, and if it was bad, it was bad, and if it was a flop, it was a flop. And that was it. But now with games being just consistently connected, and we also touched on that in our last episode about online gaming, is that if a game to an extent has these issues that are really complicating the experience and creating a negative impact on the consumer and sales, etc., they can come in, program a patch or a DLC or whatever, an update, upload it into the system, and then to even be able to continue to playing that game that you purchased, you have to download the patch, the update, and it'll go in and fix something. Yeah. That was never feasible before. You couldn't just have all the 100,000 units of I don't know, freaking the second Zelda game or whatever on Nintendo, have them shipped back, little kids out there across the nation, send that bitch back. We're going to fix it. And we'll send it back to you again. It's going to take 3 weeks. Regular postage. No. You pay for,
No, wait. What if they sent out the Nintendo soldering kit and
fix it your damn self, Timmy.
And sent you a little microchip. What you want to do? Get a little screwdriver, take these 4 little bolts out on the back here, and you see that motherboard.
Open the cartridge up, look on the back. You see that little square where there's nothing there? Yeah, we forgot to add that one. Here you go. You can throw it in there.
So what you do
screw her back up.
Plug this hot iron into the wall.
Get permission from your parents.
Yeah. No, there was no way. But I think you mentioned modders there too, kind of being in the connectivity, being a part of it, and I think even like these patches, a lot of time, they get a lot of feedback from the modders and the users of the games now. Like it's kind of starting to flow in two directions.
I just remembered what we were talking about before we had to hit the bathroom.
There you go.
We were talking about kind of like hackers and copying games. I think you brought up like if games
the dark web or something.
The dark web and copying. That's what you were talking. That's what we were talking about. And what I was going to say is that because of how games are so connected these days, that there's like, I think there's ways that PlayStation or Xbox or Steam or Blizzard or whatever Battle.net, they can kind of detect when false games are being used, or you know what I mean? Like I just feel like because everything's online now, I might be completely wrong. Obviously there's hackers, there's cheaters. We experience it all the time. I'm sure games are getting copied and sold illegally. Oh yeah. But it must be a little bit more of a challenge these days because of, there's so many IT firewalls and protections, I suspect. And like every time we load into Arc, it says on the top, by playing Arc, you agree to respect the Arc code of conduct, blah, 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 all that stuff. So, back in the day, it was a lot easier to just take a PlayStation CD, burn that mofo, and then, sell it, wherever.
Yeah. Yeah. I do feel like that's out there. I don't know that it's something that I'm going to pursue. I think it's probably more prevalent in the PC world than in the console as far as, things being available like in the dark web sort of.
Yeah, it seems that way. It seems like it's not as easy to cheat or hack or steal or whatever on consoles.
Yeah,
you're on the edge of your seat, Chuck. You all right, man?
Oh, I'm good.
Seems like you're
wanting to
like,
look around at my dog here. I want to tell our listeners if you're hearing something crazy going on in the background, it's my dog. Like she's excited.
Seems like you're nervous about our base getting raided on Arc, man. Nah, dude, not anymore, man. We got 2 million rounds ready to go.
It's crazy. I feel like I've got a lot of work to do.
Yeah,
like
I tell you, I'm excited to get back on there.
Like a mosquito at a nudist colony. Got a lot of work to do.
So, what else, Chuck? Is there anything that we're missing in regards to this topic? What was the last video game that you bought? And tell us about that experience. How did that go for you?
Let's think that through. Probably was.
Did you end up getting? What would it have been? It must have been one of these recent games we've been playing together.
What have we played recently on the PS? It's like almost everything on the PS5 has been transferred over from the PS4. So it's probably going back to Steam. I think I bought kind of a game on there that I can't remember the title of it right now. I'm kind of drawing a blank.
So this is exactly what we were talking about. If you don't remember the name of the title, man, that's on you.
I don't
Chuck's
think
still buying video games, ladies and gentlemen, like the old days.
Yeah.
That's a nice picture. Purchase.
Oh, it probably was. It was what goes with Warzone, Modern Warfare 2. I probably bought that off of Battle.net.
So you went for the full version.
Yeah, what goes with Warzone 2? That would have been
awesome, man.
Yeah.
The last game I bought was Elden Ring.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's been real fun. Yeah. Right on. Well, you got anything else in the notes or anything like that? I know you had a couple of items jotted down. Otherwise, let's keep this one short and sexy and get the listeners on their way to gaming on.
I feel like I probably have the $1 million question here somewhere.
Well, after this morning, I'm feeling like $1 million.
Yeah, me too. Let's see.
Chuck's going through his phone here. Looks all intent. He's scrolling. It's like
we've covered a whole lot of them. I'm double checking. Do you remember the most you've ever paid for one?
Oh, that's a good question. The most, I'd have to say, probably somewhere around like $70, $70 or $80, perhaps.
The Ultimate Edition, the deluxe edition.
Yeah. Oh, dude, you just brought up maybe another topic like that. And that's another thing, right, guys? I mean, the whole like, you can buy the video game. Like, can you imagine back in the day if we had gone to like, we walk into
3 choices.
JCPenney's or Target, and there's like, GoldenEye Ultimate Edition, GoldenEye, the 007 edition. And then, like, what?
It's like you had to buy the suit for James Bond, the skin for him.
Yeah, you get one that comes with the gold, like all the cheat codes already unlocked for you. That's an interesting, point. Before we wrap this one up, is all these like different editions. They're really just money grabs. You know what I mean? Like when they throw $20 onto a game's price, and all you get is the soundtrack to come with it, but the soundtrack's on Spotify. It's like, come on.
I see skins a lot of times, and maybe like a weapon or two here or there, involved in it. And I think if it's like my favorite game, or something like I could see like if there was like some of this retro Battletoads game that came out, or some collector's edition of that definitely, like, I'm a fanboy in that situation. But as far as like ultimately, is it worth it? As far as my experience on FIFA, if I got the Ultimate Edition, so I had a few extra skins and things here and there, like so I can have an afro while I'm play.
Yeah.
I think I'm okay.
So that's definitely a new aspect to buying games these days, is how you can get different packs and editions. And also, what was the other thing I was going to mention? Like DLCs and on Ark there was the season pass. So you buy the base game and you get the base maps, and then if you bought the season pass, you'd get Aberration, Extinction, and stuff like that. There was something else I was going to mention.
Yeah, a lot of them do have a season pass, like kind of the battle pass that we get in Fortnite had something very similar, I think. And
yep.
Yeah, I feel like we've covered it really well. One thing I'm interested in, I think our listeners would be too. Can you think of any sort of like unique to Mexico sort of like video game buying experience? As far as how it goes,
the prices are in pesos.
The availability, it's. I feel like it's pretty similar now to
now that it's all online.
Yeah,
and my PlayStation account's set up in the U.S., so I see the same stuff you do there, and everything is in dollars. But when I buy stuff on Steam, it's all in pesos, and it's definitely priced differently. I feel like games are cheaper down here, which is strange because, So I remember buying Zelda, the Ocarina of Time, down here in Mexico, and I remember it being so expensive, man. It was so expensive. I think it was like $100 or something, like, definitely at least $20 or $40 more than in the U.S. And dude, talk about convincing your parents to take you to give you a ride. We'd have to go all the way to Cabo or all the way to La Paz, like. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like an hour, 2 hours. And this is back when there was only one lane on the freeway. And that bitch was like a long anaconda snake. You're just like
off camber turns and like goats and shit.
Yeah, like you basically had to like try and find a spot in the suburban. Like if the folks were going to do a grocery run or a supply run, you kind of had to like, is there a spot left in that bourbon so I can get in there and get a ride down so I can, Zelda's out. You know what I'm
saying? I do feel like there in the early 2000s, there was a period, I remember being in La Paz and going to like an internet cafe, and on the door, it had like what they were willing to pay for a PlayStation 4 or something, or there was something about it, like they were selling it. And I remember it being like maybe 2 to 3 times what it cost in the United States, and thinking to myself, like, I should become a video game smuggler, man. I like get a little plane, like,
All right, we're at 10,000 feet. We're going to drop to 5. Open the door, latch the chute, push it out.
Or just like we're out in the desert down there with a little makeshift airport. I'm like, all right, Ovox, we're coming in like, over the border. There was a time period, I think, like you say, like it actually, it's almost like if it was there, it was brought from the United States, like by hand, so it was kind of like it was a premium for that service
by hand. I get to see a bunch of bunch of kids like with families, but I'm just bringing them in by hand. Here you go. Sell these. Man.
Yeah.
Gosh, man, and that's why it's funny in retrospect to look at Steam now, just here at my laptop in my living room, and just go like, oh wow, Rust is super cheap, or Ark was super cheap because I bought it on PC as well. I haven't played it on PC. I don't know if that was a good purchase because we're ultimately playing it on console, but it was super cheap. So I was like, no biggie.
Yeah, I think that's almost like one of the flip sides of like how we're nostalgic for those things, like the availability for the rest of the world. Like you got to think, all through the rest of the world, like South America, like there's probably similar stories playing out in different decades where the availability has become, and now it's like we're kind of all on the same page, kind of feeling it.
You're right, man. Yeah. I'm glad you asked that particular question because I had completely forgotten about like that experience when I got Zelda: The Ocarina of Time, or when I got Metal Gear Solid 2 for the first time. Oh man, what a game! Some games too, man. Some games back in the day, you'd go and you'd pull the trigger. Not really, all you're able to do is read the back of the box, and you'd get home and it'd be a hitter. It'd be a hitter, man. You're just like Ocarina of Time, GoldenEye 007, Star Fox 64, Metal Gear Solid 2, Siphon Filter, all the Driver. Oh, Driver was so much fun. God, I love that game. Whew, man, and you just get back and it'd be a hitter. And now, you just download them in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
So, and again, like I think there's something to be said there about there's I don't know if y'all can hear that in the background. There's like a car drive. You know how down here in Mexico, just random cars will drive by with announcement speakers, just announcing some random stuff.
Yeah, with like tortillas, like you can,
tortilla, or like the guy that comes by with the bread.
Yeah.
El panadero con el pan. El panadero con el pan. The bread man with the bread. The bread man with the bread.
Seen all of it. There's the dude with the kitchen supplies too that always impresses me. Like he's got
guy come by buying scrap metal.
Like a burner.
So if you heard that, listeners, apologies. It sounds like he's gone now, but
that's ambiance right there, brother.
Yeah. So what I was getting at is just the taking it for grantedness. If there was a lot to that time when you'd have to, go through true feats just to get a video game and not, and it's a coin toss.
Yeah.
So it's a blessing to be able to game the way we do today. That's all I get, and that's all I have to say about that.
That's a mic drop moment right there.
Well, I don't want to drop this mic. You know what I'm saying?
No, sir.
Here, let me just drop my phone a little bit. There we go.
The Q2U.
Yeah. Anyways.
Oh, man, it's been fun to talk about for sure.
Yeah, this has been a good one. So I think we should wrap it up, Chuck, before it gets too long. There's not a whole bunch more to say. Listeners, if you get a moment, just hit us up, whether it's on through a review on Apple Podcasts. That would actually be super helpful because at the same time you're helping the algorithm get the podcast out there. But if you want to leave a review with the first game you've ever played, ever purchased, whether it was good or bad. Let us know, and we'll definitely read it here on the podcast and give you a shout out. And thank you all just for listening, joining us. This is our 19th episode. We're getting close to 20, and we'll be back in 2 weeks with some fresh materials. Oh, and that's another thing. If there's any topics you would be interested in us kind of diving into, you know what we like to talk about and the topics we touch on. So shoot it our way, maybe via an email. That's ovoxandchuk @gmail.com, ovoxandchuk @gmail.com. We also have a Facebook page. I think that's facebook.com/New Wave Gaming Podcast. All one word. And you can hit us up there, follow us, like us, reach out to us. Yeah. And Chuck, you got anything for these awesome folks?
Yeah, I just hope everybody has a good couple weeks, and love everyone, and we'll see you soon.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Chuck, thank you. And those are some savage camouflage pants you got there.
Baby.
might have to Amazon me a couple of them this way.
Might get arrested for being a flex offender over here.
All right, everyone. Thank you. See you in the next one.